"You say I am a king." I always found this response of Jesus in the Gospel of John to be perplexing. He doesn't really answer the question, are you a king or not? And Jesus kind of claims kingship because he says, my kingdom is not of this world, but he says, you say I am a king. Why would he respond ambiguously like that? Well, I think it's because Pilate's conception of kingship is not the kind of king that Jesus is. So Pilate is saying, are you a king? And Jesus is trying to convey succinctly, look, I am, but not like you think. I'm a different kind of king. But that would create a bunch of other questions. So basically Jesus says, you say I'm a king, but here's what I'm here for. I was here, I was sent, I was born, I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. So somehow the kind of king that Jesus is related to testifying to the truth. I might put it to you this way. There are two worlds. There is this current world of sin and death and suffering and sadness. And this world will eventually be destroyed. It will pass away. And then there is the new world, the world of resurrection, the world of peace and beatitude. And that's the world that Jesus inaugurated at his resurrection. When he rose from the dead, he began this new world. The resurrection is the new creation. It's the 8th day of the new creation. And so Jesus is king of the new world. This world that we can see and touch and suffer in is passing away. Jesus is king of the new world. That new world is the world of God. It's the world of truth. Jesus testifies to that truth. He is that truth. He invites us into that truth. He wants us to be part of his new kingdom, the kingdom of truth, of resurrection, of peace, and of life. Now, every single one of us, through our baptism, are made citizens of this new kingdom. But we have to ask ourselves, what does kingship mean to us? There are two examples of kingship we might think about. One of them is kingship as it currently exists today, in this era where everybody, even the worst dictatorships, try to claim democracy. The king that we think about most would be King Charles III of England. If you know anything about the English system of governance, you'll know he is the king. He owns all of the palaces. He's on the currency. The Parliament is very careful to keep talking about how they serve at his pleasure and they are his government. But you'll also know, even though he can theoretically veto legislation, if he were ever to do that, if he were ever to make a political statement or force his hand politically, Parliament would then strip him of whatever power he has left. The king is a figurehead. He is there, and the English people, they value him. He's there as a representation of their culture, as a continuation of what they think they are. He is, in a sense, the first and primary Brit. But, again, if he were to make any demand, or if he were to push anything, he would be roundly removed. Now, it's important for us to think about that form of kingship because I think for many people in this world, that's the kind of king that Jesus is. I like what he represents. I am a Christian, by which they generally mean I am a cultural Christian. My culture is Christian. I subscribe to Western thought. I identify with Christian cultures. Jesus is important insofar as he is culturally important to me. But God forbid that Jesus should ever make any demand on their life, because at that point, they would push him out. Jesus is a nice idea. He's a king insofar as he represents something to me, but he is not a king insofar as he has any power in my life. Instead, when the church talks about Christ being a king, when Christ talks about being a king, we mean the kind of kingship that most of us have in mind. The King Henry VIII of the world, although Jesus is without sin and King Henry VIII certainly was not. Or all of the Louis in the history of France, one of whom is a saint. You have this form of absolute kingship. The king says something, and that goes. His word is law. That's the kind of king that Jesus is. And he's that kind of king, certainly, because he's the creator, right? He speaks, or at least God speaks, and creation comes into being. Jesus has been given dominion over all things by his Father. That's what we hear in the first reading. He has power over even death. Jesus is certainly a king. But remember, his kingship is not in this world, but in the next world. His kingship is a kingship of truth, meaning that he has absolute authority only if we give it to him. His kingdom is in our hearts, and the battle for his kingdom is happening in our hearts. I would say the definition of a true king is one who has power. And we should ask ourselves, does Jesus have any power in my life? Is he the one who helps me make a decision or form an opinion? Or is Jesus just a figurehead? A concrete way to figure that out. A challenge I made to Assumption a couple years ago that it just keeps sitting with me because it keeps working. Here's the challenge. Here's what I'd recommend you do. Make a table. Get out a piece of paper, make a table. List all of the major political issues, all of the things people are talking about on CNN or Fox News, all the things that you're studiously trying to avoid talking about at Thanksgiving dinner. Make a list of all of the controversial topics that people would disagree on, and then make a couple columns. One of those columns should be your preferred political party. Another one might be your family and friends. And a third one should be the United States bishops. And now write in the table with each issue what each of those groups believes. Right? What's the stance of my favorite political party? What's the stance of my family and friends? What's the stance of the U.S. bishops? And then highlight all of the places that you disagree. And you'll quickly see which of those columns you disagree with more. There's going to be a lot of yellow in one of those columns. Either your political party, your family and friends, or the U.S. bishops. Now, my experience of working with American Catholics is that most of the time they are most in lockstep with their political parties. Second after that is their family and friends. And then almost as an afterthought is the U.S. bishops. The reason this is an important thing to do, an important challenge, is because we're asking, what powers does Jesus have in my life? If he doesn't have the power to change our mind, then he is not our king. If he is not the lodestar, the one in whose light we make a decision, then he is not our king. I've seen a lot of people change their minds in the course of their lives. But I've seen the majority of them change their minds as their political party changes their positions. I've seen very few change their minds because they realized they were on the wrong side of the Lord. Does the Lord have power in our life? Final note. Once again, Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. The power that he exercises is not secular power. He exercises power in our hearts, which means that to be members of his kingdom, we have to choose him. We have to choose to follow him. It's a stark choice, because like I said, there are two kingdoms. There's this kingdom of this world, which will pass away, and then there's the kingdom of the Lord, which is eternal. If we choose this world, then when Christ comes again, and this world passes away, when this world is destroyed, we will be destroyed with it. We have to choose Jesus. We have to choose his kingdom. We have to give him the most power in our lives. It is only in doing so that we will maintain our citizenship in heaven. It is only in doing so that Christ will be our King.